Hello and welcome to Peaky Boardgamer. My name is Epochs and today I will teach you the game Epoch's Course of Cultures, designed by Jeffrey and published by IceMakes. The game is currently on a Kickstarter campaign, so many of the components, but also some of the rules you might hear in this video, might change in the final product. I will try to correct these changes using Klingon subtitles, so please make sure you're using them. Epochs is a 4x civilization game for 2 to 4 players that plays in about 3 hours. What I really liked in this game is how it handles combat. The game is not very hard to learn, but still there are quite a few rules, so let's not lose more time and start with a quick overview. Epoch's Course of Cultures is a 4x game in which players take control of a legendary civilization. Every civilization comes with 4 unique abilities, but only 2 of those will be unlocked, giving the player more options in what they want to make out of their civilization and how they will be rewriting history. In the course of 3 epochs, ancient, medieval and modern, players will be managing the resources in order to expand, build cities and construct trading posts. They will be researching and inventing new technologies, construct wonders. They will be switching their form of government to more advanced systems and, of course, create, upgrade and maintain an army ready for war. Will you be a peaceful leader seeking scientific and cultural growth, or will you be a warmonger carving a legacy through conquest? At the end, the player with the most victory points will be the triumphant leader in Epoch's Course of Cultures. At first, separate the cards of the game. The cards with the blue hourglass in the back illustration are invention cards. You have Epoch 1, Epoch 2 and Epoch 3 decks. The cards with the brown hourglass are market cards, Epoch 1, Epoch 2, Epoch 3 and Epoch 3 Plus decks. Then you have some double-sided cards depicting units. These are basic units which are again distinguished in the 3 epochs, Epoch 1, 2 and 3 basic unit cards. 4 of these cards depict the unique keyword in the top right corner. These are only used with specific civilizations, so set them aside. Units are distinguished to 2 types: main units depicting a banner and support units depicting a target. Keep them separated per epoch. Place the main board, the military board, the invention market board and the drawing board in the middle of the table. Use the correct side of the main board according to your player count, as indicated by this illustration. Place the scroll token in the starting space of the research track. Place the main and support basic units of the first epoch in these 2 spaces. Place the market cards of the first epoch in this space. Market cards contain units and wonder cards. Draw the top 4 market cards from the deck one at a time and place them to their corresponding column in the market. Unit cards are placed to the left column and wonder cards are placed to the right column, filling spaces from top to bottom. In this space, you will place the invention cards of the second epoch. Shuffle all the map tiles and randomly place 9, 12 or 16 face-down tiles for 2, 3 or 4 players respectively, following the exact layout that I show you here. Remaining tiles will not be used. Then you must flip the central tile or tiles facing upwards. You reveal tiles one at a time. In setup, but also during the game, whenever you reveal a new tile, you may have to rotate it so that a terrain type on the new tile matches the same terrain type in its surroundings. In this example, the tile must be rotated so that mountains are connected. This would be the valid opening for the 3 players game. Important, the layout of the board can never be altered. If in the future a player reveals this tile, it cannot be placed like that. It has to be either placed like this or be rotated 180 degrees. This would be a valid placement since deserts are connected. But even if I rotate it, we again have a valid placement, and when that happens, or if no matching is possible, then it's up to the player to decide. But what happens if more than one terrain type matches the surroundings of the new tile? In such a case, you consult the terrain priorities depicted on the military board from left to right. As it seems, desert has a higher priority than mountains, so if it's possible to connect the deserts, you must do so. If your tiles depict these illustrations, these are barbarian camps and you place one brown cube on each one. These symbols indicate the existence of a neutral city and you would place one like that. If the map depicts such an indication, then shuffle the 9 exploration tokens and randomly place one facing downwards on the space. Players then choose one of the available civilizations, or they can draw one at random and place it in front of their play area. Players will also take a trading board, a government board, a storage board, and then create a unique board by placing them together. Players can also use one of the very handy player aids. Players choose a color and take all components corresponding to that color. Going from left to right, players first take their supply and demand tokens and place them on the zero space of supply and demand tracks. All players start with the basic acumen unit, which is placed here. In their government board, players place 5 honor tokens in this area here, and they start with the government of chiefdom, indicating this with a purple cube placed here. Players start the game with 1 city, 4 cubes, and 4 trading posts, all placed in this area of their civilization board. Players also place 2 grey ability cubes in these 2 spaces, and they start the game with 1 food, 1 production, and 1 science resource placed in the top part of their hourglass. Players place one of the remaining cubes on space 0 of the culture track, and another one on space 1 of the military track. All players' remaining wooden components are placed outside of their boards as unavailable. Now take the first Epoch invention cards and randomly deal 6 cards to each player. Players keep their cards secret from other players. With the same deck, fill all 4 spaces of the invention market board and remove the first Epoch invention deck from the game. Create supplies with the remaining components of the game, resources, combat dice, neutral cities, barbarians, works of art, discovery tokens, etc. at one side of the table. Choose a player at random to take the first turn in the game, and the game is now ready to start. The game is played over 3 epochs: ancient, medieval and modern. After you set up the new epoch, players alternate turns, starting with the first player and moving clockwise until all players have taken 6 turns. Then you move to the end of the epoch phase. This is a maintenance phase before proceeding to the next epoch. At the end of the 3rd epoch, there is a final scoring and the player with the most points wins. We have already set the first epoch in the setup of the game, so let's continue with the main phase of an epoch, which is player turns. A player's turn consists of the following steps: the upkeep step, the action step, and the military step. During their turn, players may also use specific free actions we will also explain. In the upkeep step, the player first draws the top invention card of the next epoch from the stack of the board and adds the card to their hand. In the last epoch, there is no next epoch stack, so this is skipped. Then the player draws the next market card from this deck and adds it to the market. If this is a 2-players game, the player adds 2 cards, one at a time. Wonder cards are placed to the right market column and unit cards to the left column, always in the topmost empty slot. If there is no empty slot, the top card is discarded and all other cards slide upwards to make space for the new card. Then the player reveals one of the face-down map tiles. If all tiles are revealed, this step is skipped. Player can choose any tile, but again the tile must be rotated in a way that satisfies the rule explained during setup regarding terrain priority. Then you add any required components as indicated on the new map tile. Finally, if the player's units hold resources paid as maintenance costs in the previous turn, these are discarded to the general supply. We will explain these costs later on. Let's move now to the player's action step. Here the player has two options. Either invent and perform one action, or not invent and perform two actions. When you invent, you play an invention card from the current epoch. You either play a card from your hand or a card from the invention market board, but in that case you must replenish the empty spot with a card from your hand of the same epoch. The invention card is then played in this area facing upwards. Very important, during each epoch you must invent 3 times, not more, no less. So if this were my 4th turn in the epoch and I have not yet invented, then in this and my following 2 turns, I am forced to choose to invent and perform one action. But if I have already invented 3 times, then I will be choosing the 2 actions option until the end of the epoch. One last thing to remember is that you can never play the same invention more than once. Let's take a closer look in the invention cards. Invention cards depict a debut bonus in the top left corner of the card. This bonus is collected once and immediately after the card is played by the player who played it and the player to their left. Apart from the debut bonus, the invention will offer its owner only the effect depicted in the middle of the card. This can be an ongoing effect, an immediate one-time effect, or an effect that will be applied in the end of the game. In this example, the player gains another 3 food immediately. In inventions, wonders and civilization abilities you will find numberless powers, which of course I cannot explain in this video. However, you can easily understand them also by consulting the last page of the rulebook. These powers usually contradict to the rules of the game. If that happens, always remember the golden rule. The powers always take precedence over the rules of the game. Speaking about gaining resources now, there are 3 basic resources, food, production and science, which when gained are placed in this area, and there is also gold placed in this area. Gold is a wild resource and can be used as any other basic resource. Whenever required to spend resources, you discard them to the general supply. Except on resources, you'll be also gaining culture. When you gain culture, you advance your culture marker in the track. If you end on a space with other players, place your marker in the same space but lower than others. If an effect asks to compare culture with other players, tied players that move to the space first will take priority. If you ever reach to the end of the track, place your 30+ marker here and start over. Now it's time to explain all different actions that players can perform. Take note that if players perform 2 actions, they may select the same action twice. The first action is expand. The cost of the action is 1 food. All players must perform expand as their first action in the game in order to add their presence on the map. When you expand, you add 1 cube from your board to a hex on the map. This hex must not contain any other cube of another player or a barbarian, and it cannot be a C hex. After you have presence on the board, however, every time you expand, the cube must be placed near your presence. So it will also have to be either adjacent to a hex you own, adjacent to one of your cities, or adjacent to one of your trading posts. There are 4 types of natural resources that might appear on the map. Horses and iron, important for units, and also minor and major luxuries. Whenever you place a cube in a hex with a natural resource, you increase the supply of your civilization by 1 or by 2 if the natural resource is major luxuries. You increase your supply even if you already own the same natural resource from another hex. Your civilization has 1 track for supply and 1 for demand. This will play a role in the end of each epoch, but you try to increase them together because only the marker that is further behind will apply. Remember that supply must always meet demand for efficiency. If you expand to a hex with an unknown resource token, reveal it and gain its bonuses. If it's a natural resource, it stays on the map, but if it's bonus goods, discard the tile after you gain these goods. Important! If you lose ownership of a hex containing a natural resource, your civilization's supply must be decreased accordingly. The next action is Build City. The cost is 3 production, and then you take one of your available cities on your personal board and place it in the intersection of 3 hexes containing your ownership cubes, which is free of a city, of course. However, if you build next to C hexes, these hexes don't need to and cannot be owned, as we previously said. Also, you cannot build in intersections in the edge of the map, as these are not intersections of 3 hexes anyway. Finally, there must be a minimum distance of 2 hex sides between cities. This means that cities cannot be built one next to the other. After you place the city in a valid space, you immediately increase your demand by 1 point. Don't forget that when any circumstances that affect supply or demand is reversed, it will also reverse their effect on the tracks. This means that whenever and for whatever reason you lose one of your cities from the map, your demand will be decreased by 1 point. Next, we have the action Build a Trading Post. With this action, you can construct one of your trading posts on your board to a target city of an opponent player or a neutral city. You cannot perform this action if you have declared that you are a warmonger. We will see later what this means. And if you are not a warmonger, you cannot select a target city that belongs to a warmonger opponent. Apart from that, the target city must be reachable from your region, it cannot already contain one of your trading posts, and keep in mind that every city can hold a maximum of 2 trading posts. You can reach the target city in 2 ways, by land or by sea route. In the first case, the distance to the target city must be up to 2 hexagon sides from one of your owned hexes, one of your cities, or one of your trading posts placed already without crossing sea. This is called a land route and costs 1 production. If your starting point, hex, city or trading post is adjacent to a sea, you can reach any other valid target city which is adjacent to the same sea regardless of distance. This is a sea route and costs 2 production. Important! In any case, the owner of the target city must agree to the trading post request. If no opponent accepts, you cannot perform the action. If, however, you have an agreement, both players will gain 1 gold from the supply, and the player owning the new trading post also gains 2 demand. Again here, if for whatever reason one of your trading posts is returned back to your board, you must decrease your demand by 2. Very important! You may only use cubes, cities, and trading posts that are available on your personal board. All other components are unavailable until unlocked by effects and moved onto your player board. Moving on now to academic research action. When you use this action, you spend science and gain instant rewards. First, you spend the amount of science that corresponds to the next higher row where the scroll is located. In our case, it's 3 science. Then, you choose one of the 2 bonus areas and gain all rewards. In our example, the player can either gain 2 culture or 3 production and 2 authority. When you gain authority, you move cubes from your locked supply onto your personal board, which are now available to be used. After you gain the rewards, you move the scroll 1 space upwards, unless that would make the scroll cover the last space, in which case you do not move it. The last space can always be used. Next, we have the Build Wonder action. You select one of the available wonders in the market area, pay the cost depicted in the top right area, gain all immediate bonuses depicted in this area if applicable, and finally place the card in your wonders area of your personal board. In the bottom of wonder cards, again we have abilities similar to inventions. As you construct wonders, keep this area of the card visible. We now move to the Upgrade Military Unit action. With this action you improve your army by gaining a unit card from the market. Units are distinguished to main units that have this banner symbol and support units that depict this target symbol. Players can only have up to 2 units, one of each type. Players start the game with only a basic main unit, the acumen. With this action, players select any unit card from the market area, pay the cost and place the card in their corresponding unit slot. So if I buy this support unit, I will place it here, but if I buy a main unit, I will cover my acumen. Important, you can never gain a unit card you had before in the game. You must leave other copies of this unit to other players. The cost now is in science and it's depicted in the top right corner of the card, as we said. If there are other symbol requirements next to this cost, then each of those increase the cost by 2 science unless satisfied. However, you deduct from the cost the science cost of the unit you are upgrading from. Let's make an example. I want to upgrade my army with this horse archer. The cost of the horse archer is 2 science plus another 2 if I do not own the horse resource. Unfortunately, I do not own such a hex, so the total cost will be 4 science. Let's say that later on I want to upgrade my army with a camel archer. The cost is 2 science plus another 2 if I do not own a desert hex. Fortunately, I do own such a hex, so the cost is 2 science. However, since I'm covering the horse archer, I will deduct the science cost only of my previous card. So 2 minus 2, I build the camel archer for free. But if I didn't own the desert, the cost will be 4 minus 2, 2 science. A small clarification now for units requiring water as their cost. Of course, you cannot own a water hex. What you need to have to avoid the extra cost is to have either a land or a city or a trading post adjacent to any water hex. All units contribute a base strength depicted in the bottom right corner of the card. Apart from that, however, units offer other bonuses applicable to battle depicted in this area. All strength and such bonuses must be indicated onto the military board, so you must make sure to update it whenever you upgrade your units. Let's explain this with an example. Currently, this is my army, and the total base combat strength of my army is 2, indicated by my cube in this track. Apart from that, the chariot archer fights well in grassland, deserts, and when it's defending. On the other hand, the mountain warrior is very effective in the mountains. Every such indication is an additional die you'll be rolling based on these circumstances. So if the red player was attacked in a mountain hex, the red player would roll 1 base die, plus another one for defending, plus another 2 dice for fighting in the mountains. 4 dice. If later I upgrade my army with this heavy infantry, I have to lose the 2 mountain bonuses, but I will gain 1 indication for fighting in the forest and also when combat takes place in a city. In addition to that, my new base combat value is 5. There are also some additional icons depicted on units. These ones are formations. If the formations of your 2 units match, as in our case, you gain this token and gain +1 in combat. This means that the chariot archer is a horse unit, and that one means that the player cannot attack but may defend in mountains or forests. As an action, you can also change the form of your government. Your government board depicts various government forms organized in rows. Whenever you change your government, you move to the next row following one of the arrows from your current government. In our example, from classical democracy, which is my current government, I can either advance to federalism or constitutional monarchy. The only requirement is that you have acquired the cultural level depicted on the left of the row. You do not spend it, you simply need to have reached it. Then you move your government cube to the next government and immediately gain any bonuses depicted in this area. Apart from the instant bonuses, you also gain an ability that is in effect for as long as you keep this government. The number in the city illustration indicates the maximum number of cities you can support. If your new government supports more cities, as in our case, you move the extra cities to your board from your locked supply. If for any reason you can support less cities than before, extra cities must move back to your locked area. And if you don't have enough on your board, then unfortunately you must start destroying excess cities. The last action is production command. With this one, you immediately gain the bonuses offered in this area of your current government. In our case, this would be 2 food. After the action step, the player proceeds to their military step. The player first decides if they will be willing to pay the maintenance costs of their army. This cost is depicted in this area of unit cards. You either pay the total maintenance cost of all your units, and your units will be ready for war contributing their strength and advantages, or you pay nothing and your units contribute nothing as well. It's as if you have no units until your next turn. If you decide to pay the costs, place the spent resources on the unit cards to indicate to everyone that your units are ready for war. Next, you must decide if you want to declare yourself as a warmonger. Without being a warmonger, you may only launch attacks against barbarian camps and against other warmonger players. You cannot even attack neutral cities. Becoming a warmonger, you can start launching attacks also against neutral cities and non-warmonger players. Be careful, warmonger status will only be reset to normal at the end of the epoch, unless any other specific effect cancels it, of course. As soon as you become a warmonger, all your trading posts on the map are returned to your personal board, but also all opponents' trading posts in your cities are returned to their owners. Important! Every time a trading post returns back to your supply, for any reason, you gain 1 gold. Another reason could be that the city hosting a trading post is removed. A post can never remain on the board alone with no city. The last action of your military step is to make 1 attack against a valid target, which depends on whether you are a warmonger or not, as explained just before. Exception: if you have declared yourself as a warmonger during your current turn, then you can make 1 attack per human opponent or 1 attack against a neutral opponent, neutral city or barbarian. The target can either be an occupied hex or a city, and this target must be adjacent to one of your lands, one of your cities, or one of your trading posts. However, some units grant you across abilities, like this Berserker unit, which enables you to attack across the sea. If your land, city, or trading post is adjacent to sea, you can select any valid target that is adjacent to the same sea, regardless of distance. After you declare the target, dice will be rolled by both sides. Total combat strength will be determined, and the side with the highest combat total will win the combat. If the target is a human player, then each side rolls 1 die plus another die for any other applicable advantage. The sum of the rolled dice will then be added to the strength of your units, and that will be your total combat strength. Be reminded that if unit maintenance costs were not paid by a side, these units will not contribute their strength nor their advantages. If the target is a barbarian camp, then only the attacker rolls dice against the default strength of 3. If the target is a neutral city, then again only the attacker rolls dice against the default strength of 7. However, all players that might have a trading post on the attacked neutral city can decide to protect the city as if it were their own, in which case the default 7 strength does not apply. Only one player can be the defender. If players cannot agree, then the decision is taken using clockwise priority. Finally, if the target is a human player's city, the defender gets +1 in total combat strength for each owned land adjacent to that city. Now let's talk about the outcome of the combat. If you attacked a barbarian camp and you accumulated strength more than 3, you remove the brown cube and you may place one of your own from your personal board. If you attacked a neutral, unprotected city and accumulated strength more than 7, you remove the city and you may place one of your own cities from your personal board. Finally, if you attacked against a human player, defender or protector of a neutral city, then what you gain depends on the difference of combat strength. If the difference is +1 or more, you steal one honor token from the defender if they have any. If the difference is +3 or more, you also remove the target cube or city and you may replace it with one of your own. However, you can never remove a player's last cube from the map. If the difference is +6 or more, in addition to bonuses already mentioned, you steal one gold resource from the defender if they have any. Very important! If the total combat strength of the defender is greater than the attacker's, no bonuses would apply whatever the difference. The defender simply defends their position and gains nothing more. I will now make a combat example explaining most of the combat rules. We're in the military step of the blue player who wants to make their one attack. The blue player is a warmonger, so anything can be their target. The player can launch an attack against this hex. This is a grassland hex owned by the red player, so these advantages apply. Of course, this advantage only counts for the red player since the red player is defending. If the blue player attacks against this hex, then these advantages apply. However, the blue player wants to launch an attack against the neutral city, so these advantages would count. The blue player would roll 3 dice, add the total to their combat strength, against the fixed amount of 7 strength for the neutral city. After launching the attack, there is no turning back for the blue player. However, since the red player owns a trading post in that neutral city, they may protect it using their own army, and the red player chooses to do so. As you can see, also the red player will roll 3 dice. And these 2 lands owned by the defender that are adjacent to the attacked city will also contribute +1 each. So players roll their dice. The blue player has rolled a 10 plus 7, 17. The red player has rolled a terrible 3 plus 5 and plus 2 equals 10. The difference is 7 points, which is enough for the blue player to gain all 3 bonuses. The first bonus is that the red player must give one of their honor tokens to the blue player. The second one is that the city is destroyed. Since there's no city hosting the trading post, this is returned to the red player, who gains a gold resource because of that. The blue player may also place one of their own cities on the space, and they wish to do so. The third bonus is that the blue player steals 1 gold resource from the defender, and that's the end of the combat. Finishing with the player's turn, players have 2 free actions that they can use during their turn at any time. One is to consume 2 of their available authority, moving it into this area on their board to convert one basic resource into another, food production or science. You can do this any number of times. The second free action is to unlock a special civilization power of those depicted in this area of your display and gain its benefits. You can only unlock 2 of the 4 powers as indicated by your 2 grey cubes. Every power is connected to a specific epoch. You can only unlock it if you have reached or passed the epoch corresponding to that power. You must also spend the resources depicted in the cube space of the selected civilization power, if there are any. After all players have taken 6 turns, the epoch ends and you follow the next steps in order. Firstly, players with higher culture produce a work of art according to this table. For example, in our 3 players game, at the end of the second epoch, the 2 players with the highest culture will produce 1 work of art. Players keep their works of art in this area and they will gain points for these in final scoring. Then players gain trade income from their supply and demand tracks. You gain all bonuses in the column of the marker which is further behind. So in this case, I would gain 3 gold and 2 culture. Then players must feed their cities. According to this table and depending on the epoch, players must pay a cost per city to feed it, and for each city they feed, they gain a bonus. If players are unable to feed one or more cities, these are lost due to famine and are returned to the player's board. The player then loses 1 culture for each city removed due to famine. In our example, if it's the end of the second epoch, I must pay 4 food for my 2 cities. I have 4 food and I must spend them. I now gain 4 gold and 2 culture for feeding my 2 cities. The next step is gold conversion. You can only have gold at the end of an epoch. So at this point, you convert basic resources into gold in a 3:1 ratio. I have 5 basic goods, so I gain 1 gold and unfortunately I lose the 2 remaining goods. In the next step, all players lose 1 gold for every barbarian cube adjacent to their cities. If you have no gold, of course you lose nothing. Then, all players restore all authority cubes that were consumed in the previous epoch back to their supply. Finally, all warmonger players must lose culture depending on the epoch. 1, 2, 3 culture points for epoch 1, 2, 3 respectively. Then they reset back to normal status. When you set up the new epoch, you must follow the next steps. First, you replace the basic unit cards of the previous epoch with the basic units of the next epoch. Then replace the market card deck with the market card deck of the next epoch. And then you draw the top 4 cards from the new deck and place them in the market columns as per normal. If you are moving to the third epoch, create the market card deck using all epoch 3+ cards in the bottom of the stack and then 14 epoch 3 cards on top of the deck. Remaining epoch 3 cards are removed from the game. Then replace all invention cards from the market and place new invention cards from the deck. Then replace the invention deck with the invention deck of the next epoch. If you're moving to the third epoch, however, this space will remain empty. You then start the next epoch. The first player for the new epoch will be the player sitting to the left of the previous first player. After the end of the third epoch, the game proceeds to scoring. First players gain victory points equal to their culture. 1 victory point for every land they own and 4 victory points for every city on their map. Players gain 1 victory point for every honor token they have. Victory points according to this table depending on the number of works of art they possess. 1 victory point for every 2 gold remaining in their supply. And finally, victory points for any end-of-game abilities that apply. End-of-game abilities are yellow and depict an hourglass. This one, for example, grants the player 3 victory points at the end of the game if the player has 4 or more wonders built. This player has built 5 wonders and gains 3 victory points. There's another end-of-game ability from this wonder, granting the player 1 victory point for every 2 desert hexes owned. The player owns 2 desert hexes and gains only 1 victory point. Finally, the player has activated one of their civilization end-of-game bonuses and gains 1 victory point for every 2 works of art they possess. The player possesses 4 works of art and gains another 2 victory points. The player with the most victory points wins. If there is a tie, then the player with the most culture is the winner of the game. And that were all the rules of Epochs, a remarkable and modern type of 4X civilization game, if I dare say. If you like our videos and want to see more, please subscribe to our channel. Until next time, have fun and play more board games.